All right, guys, we are here for episode 7 of Not Another Powerlifting Podcast. We are here with the former head of Olympic Sport Strength and Conditioning at University of Buffalo, elite FTS equipment specialist, Nate Harvey, and author of ConjugateU. Nate, thanks for coming on today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a long time coming. When we started doing this, we were one of the guys. We say this on a lot of our podcasts because mostly we only interview people that we really want to do. You were one of the people that we initially talked about when we decided to start doing this. So it's awesome to have you on. Finally, get to talk to you over the phone, at least.
That's cool. I'm not sure what's wrong with you, but
you don't know me that well, but I'd be willing to say there's a lot of shit wrong with me. But we always ask at the beginning of the podcast, just a general question. So how did you get into lifting, and then for you especially, how did you get into lifting, and then going on to coaching athletes, and ended up into University of Buffalo?
I started training when I was 12. I'm going to be 40 here in a couple of weeks, if that gives you an idea.
Training a long time.
A long damn time. But it was when I was little, I always liked the biggest, strongest, freakiest looking athletes.
Hell yeah, man.
You know what I mean? So it was that kind of, I was asking my dad, how do I do that? And he, was like, well, you got to train a lot, you got to lift, and it's a lot of hard work. And, so I started training, and then a couple of years into it, he kind of mentioned to me, there's people that are strength coaches and they work at colleges or with athletes and stuff, and, they teach the athletes how to lift and, help them get better and faster and all this stuff. So it was almost like when I was 14, he kind of planted that seed, and I was like, that's what I want to do. I kind of just knew when I was 14. Just kept training, had all the other resources that everybody else had. It was go to the local grocery store and pick up Flex or Muscle and Fiction and try to read that stuff and, get strong from whatever was in there. Like Dorian Yates. I had freaking Dorian Yates pictures all over I had a weight room upstairs in our house.
That's awesome.
And it's kind of funny, the people that lived there before us had a little girl. So my weight room in high school had fairies and gnomes for the wallpaper all over it, but we had this weight set in there. So
very hardcore, man.
It was so hardcore, you can't even imagine. But so I'm training all through high school, and then was lucky enough to go play college football. But we didn't have a strength coach really per se. It was our D line or O line coach kind of had set the program out, that he used when he played, and that was kind of our program. So all through college, I was still kind of looking for that magic program. We're always kind of searching to see what's going to work best.
Absolutely.
And then it was going into my senior year, I stumbled onto the Conjugate Method because I was trying to research how Mike Allstott trained. Remember the fullback for the Bucks?
Yeah. Yep.
The dude was 260 and ran like a tailback. So I was like, what the fuck is he doing? Because in my mind back then, I was like, well, if I train like that, I'll obviously look and play like that,
Yeah.
So I stumbled onto, I believe it was Louis' article. It was how to bench 600 pounds easy.
Yeah.
And then the next thing I found, so I was at college and we have the internet now, so I'm finding this stuff. I found Dave's Periodization Bible Part 2.
Yeah.
Which basically laid out the Conjugate Method, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I hopped on that going into my senior year, the summer before my senior year. And senior year went real well. I felt the best I'd ever felt, more explosive, fresher. I didn't feel as banged up going through the season and stuff. And then after season, I went to test my bench. So I gave myself a week break, and then I went in and tested my bench after the season. And usually, when you first time you go to train after season, it's terrible. Everything, you pick a plate up and it feels like it's 100 pounds.
Super blown up.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I tested my bench and it was only 15 pounds lower than right before the season when I was my strongest. So that was kind of well, there's got to be something to this. You know what I mean? We're definitely onto something. So that's when I hopped on and really started messing with the conjugate stuff. And that was around 2000. And then a few years passed. Kind of got out of finished school. was out kind of working some kind of odd jobs, and then we decided I had to go back if I was going to coach. I had to go to grad school.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I looked at Buffalo because I knew some of the coaches that were up there, or at least maybe the Bills are there. There's some different opportunities. There's nothing really going on.
Pantera had broken up at that point.
What's that?
I said Pantera had broken up at that point, so I'm sure you were super depressed.
I was crushed. Didn't know what to do, so I had to move. So I did my grad work up there. And Julia from the league was there at the time, so I got to go in there and kind of learn under them. Paul Childress was also there, who was also on board with the lead at the time, and that's kind of when I started seeing him and his crew train. I had studied the system before and stuff, but then you go in and see those guys doing speed work with 4 and 5 plates and just moving it like it's a fucking joke.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, that's how it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
So
eye opener.
Still training today, and that was kind of my break in and kind of see how the system worked. And then at the same time, Buddy Morris was there, and he actually kind of got me in the door and got me started there.
That's awesome.
That was around 07, so.
What position?
That's how I got in.
What position did you play when you played football?
Well, it's a funny story. I went to college as a fullback. In my sophomore year, I was sharing time. Me and another kid were kind of splitting starting time.
Gotcha.
So and he actually ended up doing a better job towards the end of the season. He ended up playing more. So I went into coach and I said, Coach, if there's somewhere else I can help contribute to the team more, I'm willing. I'd be fine playing another position.
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, I'm thinking linebacker or defensive end. Well, the next spring he switched me and this other kid over to offensive guard. So we got moved to line.
Yeah.
So I ended up playing guard, but at the time when he told me, I was like, oh shit, this is terrible. I'm going to play line, but it ended up being the best thing that could have happened for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
He just he was able to see where I could help the team most, and it worked out really well. So it ended up being a good thing.
That's awesome, Nate. When with coaching college athletes, I see college athletes is coming to our gym all the time now, and it seems like you wouldn't know they were college athletes, especially top ones, by the way that they lift. What are some frustrating things with it, and where do you think people go wrong with coaching college athletes? Because I don't know if it's just from the kids around my area or what, but I see a lot of flaws in the way that they're training and issues with it, and it's kind of eye-opening to see a top Division I baseball player that just looks like he's never had a barbell in his hands or something like that,
Yeah, there's a lot of factors that go into it, I don't know what that kid's doing or what his commitment level is.
Absolutely.
But I think, what's that?
Absolutely. I saw that when I worked in collegiate. I worked or volunteered at the collegiate level for a little bit. And, every kid's a little bit different. How you have those kids that they're not all like us. They're not all they don't all love to lift. There's some kids that come in and they know. There's some kids that love it, and there's some kids that are just I'm just here on scholarships. I have to do this. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's tough. You look at a kid like that and you think he doesn't. He looks terrible. Like he hasn't done anything. But was he a year ago? Was he even worse off than he is now? So it's almost are they making progress? But I think overall, in the industry, there's kind of a shift away from strength, a priority on strength. I think too many people are putting too much weight, there's my pun, too much weight into other things that aren't going to help the athlete's performance as much as just getting fucking stronger.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's becoming a lost art, and it's I don't know. I don't get it.
That's if you look at the the NSCA site and all that stuff. Now I think I heard on another podcast. I think it was Wendler was talking. If you look at the NSCA site or the college strength coach site now, it's mostly just rehab stuff now. There's not a whole lot of push as far as getting fucking stronger. Like you said, is going to be the end all be all for at least for most athletes. You know what I mean? if they get stronger, they're going to get better in some way, shape, form, faster, however it might be. But, now there's so much, things have gone so, not in a bad way, but things have gotten so focused on things like injury prevention and stuff like that to where coaches now are kind of strangled into, it's almost like don't get them stronger, just don't hurt them. You know what I mean? Like just make sure they don't get hurt, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the part of the problem is sport coaches are now, they may go to a clinic or something and see somebody present and hear something, and they come back to the strength coach and say, "Oh, I don't want us to do heavy weights."
Yeah.
Because so and so at such university says that's bad. Well, if your kids just got stronger, it would help 99% of them.
That's what I was gonna say. I feel like strength is actually the biggest injury prevention by far.
Absolutely. We had under the teams I worked with in school, we had one ACL tear in 8 years.
Wow.
And all we did is we didn't have ACL prevention program.
No.
We just fucking squatted right, and we trained the shit out of their hips and hamstrings.
That's proven results, right? I mean, that kind of leads me to my next question. With conjugate training, and I mean, Josh and I have talked with other guests on our podcast about this before. It kind of gets a bad rep because people will associate the conjugate method or concurrent training with, powerlifters in squat suits, right? And how hard was it for you to sell the conjugate method to, sport coaches or whoever when you first got on at UB?
It was tough. Some coaches do it. I guess there's a whole gamut. Most coaches were okay. Some coaches would never buy in. But I got to the point when if I would go meet with a new coach, I just tried to be as general as I could. Like I wouldn't bring the name up. I didn't talk about maxing out.
That's smart.
But, it's just we'll do whatever it takes to make your kids better.
Yeah, the generic answer, right?
But it's ironic because the system itself was developed to train multiple sport Olympic athletes.
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
fucking powerlifters,
Yeah.
but we have to deal with the stigma or whatever. So it's like I don't know.
That's what makes me laugh is coaches will a lot of people will be out there saying things like, athletes need to do Olympic lifts and this and that or whatever to get faster and stronger. The conjugate method in its infancy was made for Olympic lifters. So for people to say things like, conjugate's not going to work for athletes, we want to have them do Olympic lifting. Well, realistically, the best Olympic lifters from back in the day, they were training a concurrent style training, which is conjugate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's the logic is very flawed there, but
Yeah, I mean, all our speed work is based off of the best Olympic lifters in the world at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
We just use a simpler movement to get the same muscular trait.
Yeah, exactly.
But you can't fucking explain that to anybody because Nebraska used Olympic lifts back in 1978 and we're still fucking hung up on that shit.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the problem.
Yeah, that was one thing. When I had my experience at the collegiate level, I mean, the coaches that I got to work with were very, very, very good. They're very smart. They were open to a lot of training methodologies and everything, and they had their bias, and that's fine. And I feel like every coach has their bias in a way, especially if they come from a lifting background. I mean, Jesus Christ, half the coaches now, they don't even fucking train. But, obviously you're a powerlifter, and obviously you had read a lot of Louis stuff, and, the proof's in the pudding. Like, you mean to tell me people don't understand? Louis programming or conjugate programming or concurrent programming, whatever you want to call it, it gets people to squat and bench and pull weights that are unhuman. You know what I mean? There's guys in suits squatting 1,100 pounds plus now. 1,200 pounds plus now. I think getting that system, if it could get somebody that strong and they're only focused on strength, I don't think there's any downside for an athlete to get a little bit stronger. You know what I mean?
No, not at all.
It's going to work.
If you run the system correctly, you'll do more speed and explosive work than most popular programs out there.
Absolutely.
With less wear and tear on the athlete.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're building up the areas that are prone to injury and wear and tear.
Yep. Yeah.
It kind of blows my mind because talking to some of these athletes, that they go to pretty well-known Division I schools, and I try to dig into it, and I try to say ask questions about their program, and like, well, we do a little bit of this, and like we stretch a lot, and but they don't like these are top level programs, and they don't have like a real set in stone programming with their guys, and it kind of just opens my eyes.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of and I get like it's cool because like coaches are trying different things and trying to just trying to do better for their athletes. I think.
Yeah.
But I think what ends up happening is like you get too in that process they get too far away from what they know works, right? And they almost become like that new lifter that program jumps all the time, like every 4 weeks.
Oh yeah,
because you're trying to do different and better stuff with your athletes. I think you get into that like program jumping with the athletes, and it ends up not working out so well.
I know at the school that Gray and I went to for the 4 years I was there, 4.5 years I was there, I noticed the strength and conditioning program. They went through 3 or 4 or 5 different styles of programming in that time frame. It seemed like every class had their own thing they were kind of like followed into. There was never any like consistency because they were always trying new things.
Well, yeah, that comes along the lines of people talk a lot now with so much information out there and the internet being what it is and everything. It's like the society is paralyzed by information, right? Like there's so much out there and everybody wants to try everything, and they're not giving anything enough time to work.
Right. Absolutely.
So just to backtrack a little bit, I mean, obviously everybody would now know you for working with Elite. I'm sure people knew you when you were at UB, but a lot of people will know you now for working with Elite and being with their equipment and everything like that. And also the book ConjugateU. If you guys, anybody that's listening, check out the book. I've read it myself and it's really good. I got a lot out of it. And buy it. Don't fucking steal it off the internet for fuck's sake. Yeah, fuck. That's like one of my biggest pet peeves, dude. But people will know you for the book and know you as a coach, but you are also a really accomplished lifter yourself. I mean, your numbers are very good.
I guess. I don't know. It's all relative. Like, the people I'm around to train with are way fucking stronger than me, so, it's I guess my view is skewed.
Yeah, it's all relative, right?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of explain it, like, people that don't know lifting, I kind of explain it like, if I were a track kid, I'd probably be a kid that's, like, maybe, like, almost knocking out, like, probably national qualifier, like a lower level national qualifier.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? So, and my top numbers, I kind of been limping through my last couple meets because I had some shoulder issues, but just got that taken care of. So
we've been training since you were 12 years old too. So
yeah, I mean the shoulder lasted a good while there, right?
Yeah. I mean, I got a lot of mileage out of it. We're okay.
Yeah, it's doing pretty good.
Yeah, we're all right.
That's so you. I think we talked recently. You just got that operated on. You're starting to make a comeback here, aren't you?
Yep. I got it fixed 8 weeks ago, and so yeah, we're starting to crawl back. I'll probably compete again next summer. I'll give myself a year to really let it heal up fully, and even mentally, just get back under a full load. But the lower body's coming along well. I had a really good squat workout today, so. Lower body's good to go.
That's awesome.
How long have you been doing the equipment stuff with Elite?
Almost a year now.
How has that been working for them?
It's cool. Numbers wise, numbers are up a little bit, so
that's
it's good. I guess. I don't know that correlation is causation,
yeah.
But in the sales, things are going well. And I was actually sponsored for. I think it was like 6 months or so before I started actually working for them.
Yeah.
So, I'll be with them 2 years here coming up February. So
that's awesome.
That's cool. And it's I talk about this when I go out and speak. Like I knew I wanted to coach since I was 14, and then around 2000 I started reading Elite and stuff. And then once I had a shot, like to kind of get in the door to coach, all the shit that I learned from Elite. Let me do that, you know what I mean? So now to come back and be on board and be on the team and stuff has been really cool, just as a personal thing.
Yeah, I feel like Elite has been a site that, regardless of the generations of lifters, it's been at the forefront with all of them since it came around, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's been
that's always been Dave's motto. Give free information and help as many people as we can, and things will kind of shake out in the end.
Yeah, that's actually basically exactly why we started doing this, man. Just to put information out from high-level people that are smart and know their shit like you, and do it for free so everybody has a way to access it and they can learn and take it however they need it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's he talks about that actually this weekend. There was this college coach that came down, and Dave spent the whole day with him. Like, basically helped the dude, like, rewrite his philosophy, found any flaws, and he spent the whole day with this guy, like, teaching him about training and stuff. And a few months later, they redid their weight room. Well, they didn't go with us.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's
And Dave's like, I could have been really pissed off. He goes, I kind of was for a second. He goes, but then I thought about it, like, how many people have bought our stuff that I haven't helped?
Yeah.
So he says it's like a med ball bounce. He goes, I threw the med ball out and I'm expecting it to come in right back, but that's not how it works. He goes,
Gotcha.
Put the stuff out there, and sometime or another it's going to come back around. It might not be right away or that exact person, but if you put the stuff out there, eventually the stuff's going to come around and come back to you.
Yeah, it'll pay off.
So that was kind of cool.
We got the chance to train at Elite a couple weeks ago, and we got a chance to talk to him a lot. He's one of the coolest guys I think I've ever gotten a chance to talk to. That was kind of like a fan moment for me in a way. Because you read all the stuff and you watch all the videos, you're like, holy shit, this guy's a real person, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I first came out, I kind of probably had that going on a little bit too.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I'm going to be honest. And going back to the putting stuff out thing, Joe DeFranco, I remember, like, he was at our business summit last year,
mm-hmm.
and people were asking him, how'd you get hooked up with Triple H? So he told the story how he got hooked up with Triple H, and it was just Triple H was searching something about trainers, and because Joe used to put out a ton of stuff for free, like the weekly Ask Joes and
Absolutely.
all this other shit, and he goes, well, you popped up when I searched the internet, so he did all this shit like 10 years ago and didn't see any return until 10 years later, so his message was just do shit.
Just put it out there.
Eventually it's going to come back,
So, like, on the topic of doing shit and putting it out there and everything, so when did you have the book ConjugateU, and so when did you start writing that? When did you decide to put it out?
I'd kind of been thinking about it for a couple years while I was still coaching. Just because there's a ton of good conjugate information, but I felt like nobody had kind of broke it down.
Absolutely.
So I was thinking, if we can just take just a general training plan, like a weekly training plan, lay it out, and then expand on it a little bit, and break everything down and lay it all out, I think it would be a good manual. And then, my last couple of years coaching, we started to have more and more success. So I was like, okay, now we actually have some results. We'll back this shit up,
Yeah.
And then, so it was actually in the summer I started working on it, and I started working on it in June, and my goal was to have it out by September. But it didn't get out until fucking January. So.
Hey, man, it happens. I feel like...
But that's how things go, man. It's nothing goes as planned, usually.
No. It all works out in the end, though.
Yeah, exactly. Just keep plugging away, and, it'll be all right.
I feel like you're a good medium to put that out, though, because, the conjugate system, as far as, from a coach's perspective that's not involved in the powerlifting world, it doesn't have that side to understand. They see a book, out from Louis, or they see an article out for Louis, and obviously Louis is very open about the fact that he coaches geared powerlifters, And now with you putting out your stuff, they have a coach that had a very high level of success with his athletes with the program, in the same shoes as them, putting out the information saying, hey, this shit is for real, it works.
For everyone.
Yeah, for everybody.
Yeah, that's one of my goals, or what I hope can happen. Just bring it to a wider wider audience because I feel like we can help a lot of people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I know it's effective. I know if you put it in and you do the movements right, like I talked about the other day. It's and I stole this from Ed Miller down at the Rack in Atlanta. He goes, it's like plug and play. You have the basic skeleton, you just plug the shit in and go, and it works.
Yep.
You know, it's a complex system, but it's also very simple.
Yeah, we actually were just, before this podcast, we had a chance to talk to Laura Phelps, and that was one of the things that we touched on. You know, people think, you know, they see the bands and the chains and the boxes and all the different bars and everything like that, and they think that the program is so complicated and so overly scientific that it's almost paralyzing to a point. However, you know, I mean, I have my background in exercise science. That's what I went to school for and got my master's degree for. You know, conjugate training, it isn't, in its bare bones sense, isn't that hard to understand. It's very simple. It's very easy to convey if the person has any idea of anything about training, or even if they don't, you can kind of, for lack of a better term, you could dumb it down to where anybody can understand it, and it is applicable to anybody. You know, the principles, it's science. The principles are there, and that's just, you know, they work. It's just that type of training has been going on for forever, from the weightlifters way back in the day to even beyond that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like people overthink it, you know. Or
Absolutely.
I'll hear people say, "Well, yeah, we run like a modified West Side." What do you like? I don't. Like,
what do you mean?
Modify very much.
Yeah,
Louie did all the fucking work. Just fucking copy it and go.
Yeah, it's not that hard.
Quit screwing with it, man.
Like, don't fix it if it's not broke, dude.
Yeah, but you know, everybody people want to put their own spin, and like I talked about earlier, people try to do a better job for, you know, their population, but sometimes you do more harm than good in that situation, I guess.
But see, that's the biggest positive to the conjugate method is you don't have to put a spin on it for anybody, because if you do the program correctly the way it's supposed to be done and follow the principles the way they're supposed to be followed, it's going to work regardless of who it is. It could be a 15-year-old kid that's gets into track and field and is throwing the shot for the first time, or a 70-year-old woman that wants to get into CrossFit or just work out so she doesn't die.
Yeah, the work's already been done. Like, and that's what I like about it. Everything's covered.
Yeah.
You know, all your strength types are covered. Or you can plug in a little bit different things here and there, and everything's covered. And athletic ability improves as long as you keep playing your sport while you're doing it.
Absolutely.
Like, that's it. Just go plug it in, put it in place, and you'll be good. And then you do the movements right, and your injury rates are going to go down too.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. You're exactly right.
Crazy concept.
Seen it time and time again.
Crazy concept. You know, somebody did the research and put it out there, and the stuff actually works, right? So you had, when you were at UB, you were the Olympic sports strength coach, right?
Yeah, the last 4 years I was the head of Olympic sports. Yeah.
Got it. So you kind of had like a nice little, you know, for lack of a better term, I know I've read in previous posts that you've had and stuff like that, and talks that you've done. I know you worked and you experimented a lot on your throwers. Is that right?
Yeah.
You had a pretty like perfect environment in a way, because you had a lot of guys and girls, I'm sure, that were really, you know, throwers are generally very strong. You know, and I like, so what were some of the, like, how did you experiment with them? What were some of the things that you did with them that you did differently, maybe with different teams? And
so how, like, and the reason they were like my experimental group, like, for lack of a better term, I guess, they were good lifters. You know, they were technically sound. They could pick things up quick. A lot of them stayed over the summer, so they were there. And they worked. They did a pretty good job of working hard. Was why, you know what I mean? I could mess around with them.
You could trust them to do the work.
Yeah. And like how it usually went, like if I found something new, I would try it myself, and then it would filter down. You know, if it made it through me, it would filter down to them, and then if it made it through them, we could filter it down to our other populations. As long as the other populations were ready for that.
Gotcha.
And the way I would always base progressions, for the most part, was if they were good enough lifters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like some athletes might not be good enough lifters to handle bands or whatever the thing may be. But some of the things that we did. We stole Donnie Thompson's squat cycle and ran that. Like I stole it and ran it for a few months, and it blew my squat up. So I was like, okay, we'll run it with the throwers. Worked really well for them. All their squats went up, all their pulls went up. They all jumped higher, and we weren't doing a ton of jumping at the time.
Got it.
So that's how I knew like there was a bunch of carryover. The only thing I would change with that, and I wouldn't change the program, I would just space it out a little bit, because in that program you're squatting wide every week.
Yeah.
And we started to see a little bit of wear and tear on the hips.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So if I was going to do that again, I'd be like, running the program is fine, but maybe every second or third week, throw like a close stance movement in for your max effort.
Got it.
Or like a close stance pull.
Mm-hmm.
That worked really well. We threw in some cluster sets one spring with our women's basketball, and that worked really well. So we would do like, and the throwers got this the summer before I tried it on basketball, by the way. So we started out, we would do like a 3-minute set of a movement, and they would do like, 5 reps on the clock. So they'd do 5 reps, rest 10 to 15 seconds, do 5 reps, and repeat that for 3 minutes straight.
Got it.
And then the next week they came in, we added a minute. And the next week they came in, we added a minute. So we got up to, it was like doing 5-minute cluster sets.
Got it.
But that was just on their accessory work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that seemed to get a good kick and, kind of boost everybody. Bands worked real well. Oh, that's what, so using more accommodating resistance on max effort days,
mm-hmm.
that seemed to help everybody.
Yeah.
And I think it's just having more load at the top. You get a little more CNS kick from that, right? And then they have to accelerate. They have to keep accelerating too on the way up.
Got it. So was that?
I think that helps them.
Yeah. So is that? Do you have a preference as far as athletes, bands, chains, as far as your accommodating resistance?
General off season, we'll rotate them. Just go back and forth to keep it varied.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I like to do, like when we're getting ready for our important time of year, like it may be playoffs for baseball or like our big track meet that we need to perform well at, then I like to go do more bands because I feel like they speed you up.
Yeah, you get that overspeed eccentric.
So we would actually do like a peaking thing where we would do, once we were like 3 or 4, almost like circa max. So when we were like 3 or 4 weeks out, we'd pull the bar weight down and put more bands on. And then, so we might be working like 30 to 40% bar weight, but more bands, so their speed work was faster. And that seemed to help. We did, with track, we started doing, and I stole this from Louie, we started doing event-specific stuff. So we would put them on a belt squat and do timed squats according to their event. So like a 200-meter runner might squat for 22 seconds and do a few sets of that, but squat as many reps as they can, as fast as they can.
Got it.
And then like an 800-meter runner had to go 2 minutes.
Oh, God. Jesus Christ.
So like it was tough, but the feedback we got from the kids was they felt like the race was easier after doing that.
Yeah.
Because the person that decelerates the least is going to win.
Oh, yeah.
So that they felt like that helped them.
Is there any specific weight range or intensity range you would use, like on those marching or jumping or whatever on the belt squat for them?
For those time sets, what we would do is we would quadruple a mini band and run it under the machine and hook each end on the peg. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So there's a fair amount of band tension on there.
There's a lot.
And like our female sprinters, we may start them out with just the band on week 1, and then we would try to progress the weight, try to bump them up as they, whatever they could handle over the next few weeks.
Got it.
And then like our stronger guys might have like a 25 or a 10 on each side.
Got it. So is that all these experiments you got to run like on the athletes there? Is that kind of how you went into developing? I know in the ConjugateU book you talk about the training lanes.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of what led you to the training lanes, or is that something that you came up with on your own, or?
Well, it's just, if you look at the system, it's actually laid out like that.
Yeah.
Like if you list your training day and just go down the list, like that's each thing is like I consider a lane, and I always kind of thought about it like that. But then I was talking to Dave last year when we did that table talk, and he mentioned lanes or whatever, and I was like, dude, that's what it is. They're lanes. You know?
That's awesome.
He just said it, and I was like, that's what it is. That's how I've been thinking. So yeah, I kind of stole that from him, but that's where the name came from for sure.
Yeah, that's an interesting take on it. You know, you talk a little bit about breaking the system down in almost an easier way. That's a much easier way for people to think about it as far as their assistance and their accessory work.
Yeah, and that's how I would program too. Like I would never plan out 20 weeks of training.
Yeah.
I would look at our important event and then work backwards. But as I'm going down through, I would program for each lane.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because it kind of separates everything and helps keep it kind of balanced.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about how it was to sell the Conjugate Method to the coaches. How did the students and the athletes respond to that at the school? As far as I don't know what when you came in, I don't know what the coaches were doing before you got there, but how did the kids respond as far as that programming? Did they like it? Did they not like it?
The kids were fucking great. 99% of the kids would hop in, do it, and then once we were going for 2 or 3 weeks, let's say they were doing something different. Usually 2 or 3 weeks in, you start hearing kids say, "Man, I feel really good. I feel like I'm moving really good. My knees don't hurt as bad as they used to."
Interesting.
Just shit like that, you know what I mean? And then, if there was any disbelief in the system, it was 99% from the coaches. Most all the kids, liked it.
Yeah. And
then, if we would change things, because a coach wanted to, then the kids are looking at me like, "What the fuck is this? This isn't our stuff," But I'm just kind of shrug,
that's what your coach wants.
Yeah, just
talk to your coach.
I don't know what to tell you. So yeah, but the kids were great. 99% of the kids are great.
That's awesome. So do you? I think I talked to you a while back about this. Do you still? I think when we talked before, you were doing training online as far as clients and stuff. I think this was before the book came out. Are you still doing that?
Yeah, I am. And I'm not doing a ton of people, and that's just because I wanted to make sure I had a good system set up where I could do it efficiently, and I didn't want to get so loaded up with it that I was doing a shitty job either.
Gotcha.
But I'm starting to do more because, like I said, I feel like I got a point where I have kind of a system set up and I'm more efficient at it, where it's not going to take away from my other job as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm starting to pick that up a little bit because, like I said, I'm getting kind of in a groove, and I just went and talked to somebody today. So
that's awesome.
I'm gonna try to get that rolling a little more too.
Is that for athletes or is that for powerlifters or kind of a diverse?
Both. So I got a couple high school athletes, some lifters, got a couple raw lifters. I know Conjugate doesn't work for raw lifters.
Yeah,
but we're going.
Clearly not. It's all about RPE, man.
Yeah, I just did a cambered, just PR'd my cambered. It doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
It's terrible. It's fucking awful. But what I do is so I go week by week. So we get all your information, and then I'll program your first week, depending on where they're at. So sometimes we'll just do speed work just to see where technique is and stuff.
Yep.
And then they'll send me video of their last 2 sets of their speed work or their max effort work of those movements, and anything else they have questions on. Let's say I prescribe something and they, it doesn't work well, or they kind of feel weird doing it. Send me a video, we'll take a look at it, and then I send feedback within 24 hours on all the video stuff, and then each week they get a new program, and we kind of base that off of how last week went.
Gotcha.
So we just kind of roll on like that. And seems to be going well so far. So
that's awesome. It's
cool. I enjoy it. It's cool, and I was hesitant to get into it But then I kind of thought back, like I talked about when I first got to UB and saw people train correctly. I was like, you know what? When I was first getting into this, if I could have sent like videos to somebody at my lifts and they, coached me up a little bit, it definitely would have helped. Because that was my thing when I first kind of started playing with the idea of doing it. I was like, is this actually going to fucking make a difference for anybody? Like just send them a program and, but I think the video really helps a lot.
Yeah, I would be willing to say it does for sure. That's Josh and I. We train together, and there are times when we don't train together. We only train together once or twice a week. But when you have somebody, you're a coach in a sense because you're doing the program and everything. But in another sense, you're almost like a online training partner, if that makes sense. You're watching their sets. You're able to analyze and tell them like, hey, you're fucking up here. You're fucking up here. This is good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Plus, I'm sure
always good to have an extra set of eyes on.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, I'm sure that helps you a lot. It makes things a lot easier for you as far as, you can program for somebody all you want and send them templates and programs or whatever. But if you're not actually watching them lift, you can only do so much because you're not seeing, like, glaring things like, okay, you're pitching forward, your knees are coming in, stuff like that.
Yeah. Like, to me, just write a program is kind of, I don't know how you can. How do you know where to go if you don't see what's going on,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man, we appreciate guys like you for this industry that put good stuff out there and make themselves transparent and available to people like Gray and myself who started this to just put out free information. We appreciate you taking the time to come on here with us, man, and just BS for a little bit, and hopefully this helps someone out.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully.
Where can people find you at, Nate?
Where can't they find people? Right? I got the Instagram, Nate Harvey 2600. There's also ConjugateU. So it's Conjugate_U, which are basically the same shits on both of them. I just had 2 accounts. So I figured there's people on the one that might not be on the other. But that's Twitter and Instagram. I have the coaches log on Elite. Anybody can email me anytime. It's Nate N. Harvey at elitefts.net. So I'm on Facebook too. So yeah, pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, man, we're gonna have to get with you for some equipment for our facility out here in Pittsburgh as well. I've sent you some emails about some stuff and some bars we're trying to look at as we grow and expand. So we'll be definitely getting some more equipment from Elite FTS as well.
Yeah, very cool, man. We appreciate it.
All right, man. Well, we're kind of running up against time a little bit right now. So again, if you guys want to follow Nate, we'll have all the stuff in the bio and everything. But Nate, we just want to take a chance to thank you again for coming on and talking with us for a little bit.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. Want to do it again, let me know.
Absolutely. We're going to definitely try to work it out to where we could actually sit down in person and talk, dude.
Yeah, definitely. We'll make it happen.
All right, for sure. All right, thanks again.